What if I told you that you could transform your English speaking abilities from basic to fluent in just 5 months? Sounds impossible, right? Well, today I'm going to shatter that misconception and show you exactly how thousands of successful language learners have achieved this remarkable transformation, and how you can too. I'm Grace, and you're listening to English Listening Practice, where we break down the barriers to becoming truly fluent in English. In today's episode, we're tackling the question that's on so many language learners' minds. Can I really become fluent in English in just 5 months? The answer might surprise you. By the end of this episode, you'll have a complete roadmap to English fluency. Not just theory, but practical, actionable steps that you can implement starting today. So whether you've been studying English for years without seeing results, or you're just beginning your language journey, this episode could be the game changer you've been looking for. Before we dive into the how, let's get clear on what we actually mean by fluency. This word gets thrown around a lot, but there's often confusion about what it truly means to be fluent in a language. Many people believe that fluency means speaking perfectly, without any accent, like a native speaker who's grown up with the language their entire life. They think fluency means knowing every word in the dictionary and never making a single grammar mistake. If that's your definition, then yes, 5 months would be unrealistic. But that's not what true fluency is about. Think about the word fluent itself. It comes from the Latin word fluere, which means to flow. Picture a river with water flowing smoothly. That's where the concept of language fluency comes from. When you're fluent in English, your speech flows naturally. You don't have to stop and translate in your head or search painfully for every word. Fluency means you can communicate effectively and naturally without excessive hesitation. You can express your thoughts, understand others, and participate in conversations without the communication breaking down. It's about getting your message across clearly and understanding what others are saying to you. To break it down more specifically, fluency in English means 3 main things. First, smooth and easy communication. Your words come out naturally, and the conversation flows without awkward pauses while you try to figure out what to say. Second, confidence in expression. You feel comfortable sharing your thoughts and ideas, even if you make occasional mistakes along the way. Third, conversation readiness. You can discuss everyday topics like your day, ask for directions, talk about your hobbies, express opinions, and engage in normal social interactions. Here's an important truth that might take some pressure off. Even native English speakers make mistakes regularly. They use incorrect grammar, forget words, and sometimes struggle to express complex ideas clearly. Perfection is not the standard for fluency. Effective communication is. If you can share your thoughts and understand others, you're fluent. Even if you don't know every word in the dictionary, or if your grammar isn't perfect 100% of the time. We're not aiming for perfection. We're aiming for natural, effective communication. Now that we've established what fluency really means, let's address the big question: is it truly possible to become fluent in just 5 months? The answer is yes, but with some important qualifications. It requires commitment, the right approach, and consistent practice. This isn't about finding some magical shortcut. It's about using your time effectively and focusing on the methods that actually work. Let's clear up a common misconception right away. Time alone doesn't determine how quickly you learn a language. It's not just about how many months or years you spend, but how you spend that time. Think about it this way. Someone who studies effectively for 2 hours every day for 5 months, about 300 hours total, will make much more progress than someone who casually practices once a week for 5 years, about 260 hours total. It's about both quantity and quality. You need both for optimal results. So how much time do you need to invest to achieve fluency in 5 months? Research suggests that about 600 hours of focused, effective practice is a reasonable target for reaching conversational fluency in English. Assuming you're starting with some basic knowledge, let's break that down. 600 hours over 5 months equals about 120 hours per month, or roughly 30 hours per week. That translates to about 4-5 hours per day if you practice every day of the week. Now, before you get overwhelmed by those numbers, remember that this doesn't mean sitting at a desk with a grammar book for 5 hours straight every day. That would be ineffective and unsustainable. Instead, you can integrate English practice into various parts of your day in ways that are engaging and enjoyable. For example, your daily English practice might look something like this morning. Listen to an English podcast while getting ready and eating breakfast, 30-45 minutes. Commute. Use flashcards or a language app to review vocabularies, 20-30 minutes. Lunch break. Read news articles or short stories in English, 30 minutes. Afternoon break. Listen to English music or watch short videos, 15-20 minutes. Evening. Watch an English TV show or YouTube channels, 45-60 minutes. Before bed. Have a conversation with a language partner online or practice speaking aloud by yourself, 30-45 minutes. By breaking it up like this, you make the practice more manageable and can fit language learning into your existing routine. This approach also helps you maintain focus and engagement throughout the day. Now, while the quantity of practice time matters, the quality of that practice is even more crucial. You could spend 8 hours a day with English playing in the background while you scroll through social media in your native language, but you wouldn't make much progress. Conversely, 1 hour of focused, active practice can yield tremendous results. So how do you maximize the quality of your learning time? Let me share 4 key principles that dramatically improve learning efficiency. First principle: engage in active, focused practice. Don't just passively listen or read in English. Actively engage with the material. When listening, really concentrate on understanding the meaning. When reading, don't just skim, process the information. When learning new words, create your own example sentences. This active engagement makes a world of difference in how quickly you progress. Second principle: use comprehensible input. This means exposing yourself to English content that's at the right level for you. Challenging enough to push your boundaries, but not so difficult that you feel completely lost. If you're watching a show or reading an article where you only understand 10% of the words, you're not learning efficiently. Aim for around 80-90% comprehension. This sweet spot helps you learn without becoming discouraged. Third principle: prioritize speaking practice. This might seem obvious, but many language learners spend years studying grammar and vocabulary without actually speaking the language. Reading and listening are important foundations, but speaking is the skill that develops fluency. You must practice producing the language yourself, forming sentences, expressing ideas, and engaging in conversations. Find a language partner, hire a tutor, or even talk to yourself if necessary. Fourth principle: ensure emotional engagement. The more you enjoy the learning process, the faster you'll progress. Your brain is wired to learn more effectively when you're emotionally engaged. Choose topics that genuinely interest you and find ways to make learning enjoyable. Watch movies you love in English. Read about your hobbies. Discuss topics you're passionate about. When you're emotionally invested, learning becomes both more enjoyable and more effective. Now let's tackle one of the biggest myths about language fluency: the idea that you need to memorize thousands and thousands of words before you can communicate effectively. The reality is far more encouraging. Research shows that the 2,000 most common words in English account for about 80% of everyday speech. Add another 2,000 words, and you'll understand about 90% of typical conversations. This means you only need around 4,000 well-chosen words to hold everyday conversations comfortably. Think about your daily life. The topics you typically discuss involve common vocabulary about the weather, food, work, family, hobbies, feelings, and basic descriptions. You don't need specialized vocabulary like metamorphosis or subatomic for normal conversation. A focused, practical vocabulary is far more useful than trying to memorize obscure words you'll rarely use. Start by mastering the most common and versatile words in English. You can gradually expand your vocabulary over time. But to reach fluency quickly, focus on learning words that will help you communicate immediately. This targeted approach makes the goal much more manageable. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by the prospect of learning all 171,000 of words in the English language, you can focus on the 4,000 or so words that will give you the most communicative power. Now, let's talk about one of the most underrated yet powerful tools for developing fluency: listening comprehension. When it comes to mastering a language, listening might be your most valuable skill. When you listen to English, you're not just learning vocabulary and grammar. You're training your ear to recognize the natural rhythm, intonation, and flow of the language. You're getting used to how words connect in natural speech, how native speakers reduce certain sounds, and how the melody of the language works. This ear training is absolutely critical for developing your own speaking fluency. Immerse yourself in English audio as much as possible. Listen to podcasts, audiobooks, YouTube videos, TV shows, movies, music, anything that exposes you to the sounds of natural English. The more you listen, the more your brain will begin to recognize patterns and make connections. But here's the key: passive listening alone isn't enough. While having English audio playing in the background is better than nothing, active listening produces dramatically better results. When you actively listen, you're fully engaged with the content, trying to understand the meaning, noticing pronunciation patterns, paying attention to how sentences are constructed. Try this active listening technique. Choose a short audio clip, 2 minutes, of a native speaker. First, listen to understand the general meaning. Then listen again, this time focusing on specific words and phrases. On the third listen, try to notice the intonation patterns, where the speaker's voice rises and falls. Finally, try to repeat what you hear, mimicking not just the words, but the rhythm and intonation as well. This kind of focused listening practice trains your ear much more effectively than hours of passive background audio. It's about quality over quantity. Now let's address one of the biggest obstacles to fluency: the fear of making mistakes. This fear keeps countless language learners trapped in a cycle where they study English for years, but never become truly fluent because they're too afraid to speak. Here's the truth: mistakes are not just normal in language learning. They're necessary. They're how your brain figures out what works and what doesn't. In fact, if you're not making mistakes, you're probably not challenging yourself enough to make real progress. Think about how children learn their first language. They make countless mistakes, saying words incorrectly, using grammar wrong, mixing up sentence structures. But they keep talking anyway, and eventually they become fluent. The same principle applies to you as an adult learner. Every time you make a mistake and correct it, you're creating stronger neural pathways in your brain. Those pathways help you avoid the same mistake in the future. It's literally how your brain learns. Remember, fluency isn't about perfection. It's about effective communication, as long as people can understand what you're trying to say. You're on the right track, even if your grammar isn't perfect or you occasionally use the wrong word. To build your confidence, start practicing in low-pressure environments. Talk to yourself in English while you're alone at home. Record yourself speaking and listen back. Practice with a supportive friend or use language exchange apps where everyone is a learner. The more you practice, the more comfortable you'll become with the inevitable mistakes, and the less they'll bother you. Just like athletes don't become champions overnight, language fluency develops through consistent, deliberate practice. Think of language learning as training your brain. You're building neural pathways that allow you to process and produce English more automatically over time. When athletes train, they don't just try a skill once and move on. They practice the same movements repeatedly until they become second nature. The same principle applies to language learning. Repetition is the key to moving information from short-term to long-term memory. One of the most effective techniques for language learning is called spaced repetition. Instead of cramming vocabulary all at once, you review it at strategically spaced intervals. For example, after learning a new word, you might review it 1 day later, then 3 days later, then a week later, and so on. This approach is scientifically proven to maximize retention. Here's how you can incorporate repetition into your daily English practice. First, review vocabulary regularly. Every day, review the words and phrases you learned previously. Use flashcards, spaced repetition apps like Anki or Quizlet, or simply write them down in a notebook and review them at different times throughout the day. Second, use new words in multiple contexts. As soon as you learn a new word, challenge yourself to use it in several different sentences. For example, if you learn the word essential, you might create sentences like, "Sleep is essential for good health. It's essential to practice speaking English daily." And, "What are the essential items you need for traveling?" Third, practice speaking aloud. Don't just think sentences in your head. Say them out loud. This helps you develop the muscle memory needed for fluent speech and builds your confidence hearing your own voice in English. Fourth, revisit old material regularly. Language learning isn't linear. You need to circle back to previous lessons and topics to truly master them. Set aside time each week to review what you learned earlier. Remember, repetition isn't boring when you vary how you engage with the material. The more you encounter and use a word or phrase in different contexts, the more easily it will come to mind when you need it in real conversation. One of the most powerful accelerators of language learning is immersion. Surrounding yourself with the language as much as possible. When you immerse yourself in English, you force your brain to adapt and process the language continuously, which dramatically speeds up acquisition. Now, I know what you might be thinking. But I don't live in an English-speaking country. How can I immerse myself? The good news is that in our digital age, you can create a rich English environment no matter where you live. Here are some practical ways to immerse yourself in English daily. Change your digital environment to English. Set your phone, computer, social media accounts, and other devices to English. This simple change means you'll be processing English dozens of times throughout your day as you navigate these familiar tools. Consume entertainment in English. Watch TV shows, movies, and YouTube videos in English. Start with subtitles in your native language if needed, but gradually transition to English subtitles, and eventually, no subtitles at all. Pay attention to how characters speak and try to repeat phrases that catch your attention. Listen to English audio throughout your day. Choose podcasts, audiobooks, or music that interest you. Listen while commuting, exercising, cooking, or doing household chores. This background exposure adds up significantly over time and helps train your ear to the sounds and rhythms of English. Create English-only zones in your life. Designate certain times of day or specific areas of your home where you commit to thinking and speaking only in English. For example, you might decide that from 7-8 p.m. every evening, you'll only use English, or that whenever you're in your kitchen, you'll think and speak in English about what you're doing. I'm chopping onions for dinner, or I need to wash these dishes. Label items in your home with English words. This visual reinforcement helps cement vocabulary in your mind as you encounter these objects throughout your day. Keep a journal in English. Writing down your thoughts, experiences, and plans in English helps you process the language more deeply and provides valuable writing practice. Think in English whenever possible. Challenge yourself to form your thoughts in English rather than your native language. This mental practice is hugely beneficial and can be done anywhere, anytime. These immersion strategies create a language-rich environment that accelerates your learning dramatically. Even without living abroad, you can ensure that English becomes a natural part of your daily life. Even with all the solo practice in the world, there's no substitute for actual conversation with other people. Finding an English-speaking community is essential for developing real-world fluency. Fortunately, there are many ways to connect with English speakers or fellow learners, no matter where you live. Online language exchanges provide a fantastic opportunity to practice with native speakers. Platforms like italki, HelloTalk, and Tandem connect you with people around the world who want to learn your language while helping you with English. You can arrange video calls, voice chats, or text conversations, all valuable forms of practice. Many cities have in-person language meetups where people gather specifically to practice languages together. Check platforms like Meetup.com to find English conversation groups in your area. These face-to-face interactions provide invaluable practice in real-time conversation. Social media can also be a powerful tool for language learning. Join Facebook groups, Reddit communities, or Discord servers dedicated to English learning. These online communities offer support, resources, and opportunities to practice in a friendly environment. If possible, find a qualified tutor or teacher who can provide structured guidance and feedback. While free language exchanges are wonderful, a professional can help identify and correct patterns of errors and provide tailored exercises to address your specific challenges. The key benefit of practicing with others is that it forces you to use English in authentic communication. You'll learn to think on your feet, navigate misunderstandings, pick up natural phrases, and build confidence in real-time conversation. These skills simply can't be developed through solo study alone. To develop well-rounded fluency in English, you need to work on all 4 key language skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Each of these skills reinforces the others, creating a positive cycle that builds your overall proficiency. Let's explore how to practice each skill effectively. Listening is the foundation of language comprehension. It trains your ear to recognize sounds, words, and patterns in English. To practice listening effectively, engage with diverse audio sources, podcasts, audiobooks, movies, music, and conversations. Don't just listen passively. Actively process what you hear. Try techniques like shadowing, repeating what you hear with minimal delay, or dictation. Writing down what you hear to deepen your engagement with the material. Speaking is where true fluency becomes apparent. It's the skill most people think of when they imagine being fluent. To develop speaking skills, you need regular practice producing the language yourself. Speak every day, even if it's just talking to yourself about your daily activities. Record yourself speaking and listen back to identify areas for improvement. Find conversation partners for regular practice, either in person or through language exchange apps. Remember that speaking is a physical skill that requires muscle memory. Your mouth needs to get used to forming English sounds and words. Reading expands your vocabulary and strengthens your understanding of grammar in context. It exposes you to diverse sentence structures and expressions that you can later incorporate into your own speech. Start with materials at your level and gradually challenge yourself with more complex texts. When reading, don't just passively scan the text. Engage actively by summarizing what you've read, noting new vocabulary, or discussing the content with others. Reading aloud combines reading practice with speaking practice, helping you connect written and spoken forms of the language. Writing helps consolidate your grammar and vocabulary knowledge. It gives you time to think about language structures and word choices in a way that speaking often doesn't. Keep a daily journal in English. Write emails or messages to language partners or participate in online forums. Writing forces you to form complete thoughts and express yourself clearly. When possible, get feedback on your writing to identify recurring errors and areas for improvement. By working on all 4 skills regularly, you create a balanced language learning approach. Each skill strengthens the others. Reading builds vocabulary for speaking. Listening improves pronunciation for reading aloud. Speaking practices the grammar you've learned through writing, and so on. When attempting to reach fluency in 5 months, consistency is absolutely essential. Sporadic practice, no matter how intensive, simply won't get you there. Your brain needs regular exposure and practice to form the neural pathways that make language use automatic. Create a structured daily schedule that incorporates all 4 language skills. Here's an example of what that might look like. Morning routine, 1 hour. Listen to an English podcast while getting ready for the day. Review vocabulary from the previous day using flashcards or a spaced repetition app. Read a short news article and summarize it aloud to practice both reading and speaking. Lunchtime practice, 30 minutes. Watch a short YouTube video in English. Practice speaking by recording yourself summarizing the video's content. Review any new vocabulary you encountered. Afternoon session, 45 minutes. Have a conversation with a language partner or tutor, focusing on topics relevant to your interests or daily life. If that's not possible every day, use this time for additional reading practice or structured grammar exercises. Evening routine, 1 hour. Watch an English TV show or movie. First with subtitles if needed, later without. Pay attention to natural expressions and try to incorporate them into your own speech. Before bed, spend 15 minutes writing in an English journal about your day or your thoughts on a particular topic. Weekend intensive practice. Use weekends for extended practice sessions. Try a 3-hour immersion where you only use English, watching shows, reading, speaking with partners, and writing. This longer exposure helps build stamina for using the language. The key is consistency. It's better to practice for 1 hour every day than to cram 7 hours once a week. Daily practice keeps the language active in your mind and prevents forgetting. While creating a schedule is important, equally crucial is making your learning enjoyable. If your practice feels like a chore, you'll struggle to maintain consistency. Find content you genuinely enjoy, whether that's cooking shows, sports commentary, music, or fantasy novels. The more pleasure you associate with English, the more motivated you'll stay. Learning a language intensively is challenging, and it's natural to face obstacles along the way. Some days you'll feel like you're making tremendous progress. Other days you might feel like you've actually gotten worse. These fluctuations are completely normal in the language learning process. To stay motivated during the challenging periods, implement these strategies. Set small, achievable goals rather than focusing solely on the end goal of fluency. Celebrate minor victories like learning 10 new phrasal verbs, having your first 10-minute conversation without switching to your native language, or understanding a TV show without subtitles. These smaller achievements provide regular doses of motivation. Track your progress systematically. Keep a learning journal where you note what you've practiced each day and any breakthroughs or challenges you experienced. Record yourself speaking periodically, else perhaps once a week, so you can look back and hear your improvement over time. This concrete evidence of progress is invaluable when motivation dips. Connect with other learners who understand what you're going through. Join online communities of English learners where you can share your experiences, ask questions, and receive encouragement. Having this support system makes the journey less isolating and more enjoyable. Remind yourself regularly of why you want to learn English, whether it's for career advancement, travel, education, or personal enrichment. Keeping your motivation clear helps you push through difficult moments. Some learners even create a visual reminder, a vision board or a note on their desk that represents their language goals. Use positive reinforcement to maintain motivation. Reward yourself when you reach milestones in your learning journey. The reward could be as simple as a favorite treat, a break to watch a movie you enjoy, or something more substantial for major achievements. Expect and prepare for plateaus, periods where you seem to stop making progress despite continued effort. These plateaus are a normal part of the learning process, not a sign of failure. Often, your brain is consolidating information during these periods, and you'll experience a sudden breakthrough after what seemed like a standstill. With dedication, consistency, and the right approach, English fluency in 5 months is an achievable goal. The journey won't be without challenges, but the reward, being able to express yourself freely in another language, is well worth the effort. Remember that the journey to fluency is about more than just mastering grammar rules and memorizing vocabulary. It's about developing confidence in your ability to communicate, finding joy in connecting with others across language barriers, and opening doors to new opportunities and experiences. As you continue immersing yourself in English, engaging with the language daily, and practicing with determination, you'll see steady progress. Each conversation, each book you read, each show you watch brings you one step closer to fluency. By the 5-month mark, you'll likely find that English has become a natural part of your daily life. You'll think in English without consciously translating, Speak with greater confidence and ease, and understand more than you ever thought possible. And that's the ultimate reward. Not just technical fluency, but the ability to connect with millions of English speakers worldwide. Access English, language media, and culture directly, and express your unique thoughts and personality in a new language. So commit to your learning journey. Embrace the challenges as part of the process, and believe in your ability to achieve this goal. With the right approach and consistent effort, you can absolutely become fluent in English within 5 months. Now, let's expand our discussion to address some additional strategies and insights that can further accelerate your progress toward English fluency. One aspect of language learning that's often overlooked is the power of context and association. Our brains are wired to remember information better when it's connected to meaningful contexts rather than learned in isolation. Instead of memorizing random word lists, try learning vocabulary in thematic groups, or, better yet, through stories and real-life situations. For example, rather than memorizing a list of food-related words, learn them while following an English recipe, watching a cooking show, or role-playing a restaurant scenario. This contextual learning creates stronger neural connections, making the vocabulary easier to recall when you need it. Similarly, when learning grammar patterns, focus on understanding how they're used in natural communication rather than memorizing abstract rules. Notice how the past perfect tense appears in stories about previous experiences, or how conditional structures emerge in discussions about hypothetical situations. This approach makes grammar intuitive rather than theoretical. Another powerful accelerator is what linguists call comprehensible output, the practice of producing language yourself. While comprehensible input, listening, and reading is essential, you also need regular opportunities to form your own sentences and express your own thoughts. Challenge yourself daily with speaking and writing tasks that push the boundaries of what you can currently express. Try explaining complex topics, describing detailed scenes, or arguing different perspectives on an issue. These challenging outputs force your brain to consolidate your language knowledge and identify gaps in your abilities. For many learners, pronunciation remains a challenging aspect of fluency. While a perfect native, like accent, isn't necessary for effective communication, clear pronunciation certainly helps others understand you better. Focus on the specific sounds and patterns that cause the most difficulty for speakers of your native language. For example, if your language doesn't have the F sound found in think or this, give extra attention to practicing those specific phonemes. Use minimal pairs, the words that differ by just one sound, like thin and sin, to train your ear and mouth to distinguish and produce these sounds. Equally important is mastering the rhythm and intonation patterns of English. English is a stress-timed language, meaning certain syllables are emphasized more strongly than others, creating a distinctive rhythm. This differs from syllable-timed languages where each syllable receives roughly equal emphasis. Practice by shadowing native speakers, exaggerating the stress patterns at first until they begin to feel natural. Let's also address the role of feedback in your learning journey. Without quality feedback, it's difficult to correct errors before they become habits. Seek out opportunities for constructive correction from teachers, tutors, or knowledgeable conversation partners. When receiving feedback, adopt a growth mindset. View corrections not as criticism, but as valuable information that helps you improve. Keep a record of recurring errors and dedicate specific practice time to addressing these patterns. This targeted approach is much more efficient than general, unfocused practice. Technology offers increasingly sophisticated tools for language learners. Speech recognition software can help you practice pronunciation, providing immediate feedback on your clarity. AI language partners can offer conversation practice when human partners aren't available. Translation tools, while not perfect, can help you understand difficult material and check your own writing for major errors. However, remember that technology should supplement, not replace, human interaction. The unpredictable nature of real conversation with actual people provides a type of practice that even the most advanced AI can't fully replicate. Cultural understanding is another dimension of language fluency that's often underemphasized. Languages don't exist in isolation. They're deeply intertwined with cultural norms, values, humor, and social practices. To truly understand and use English naturally, familiarize yourself with the cultures where it's spoken. Watch movies and TV shows that depict everyday life in English-speaking countries. Learn about cultural references, idioms, humor styles, and social customs. Understanding these cultural elements helps you interpret communication beyond the literal meanings of words, picking up on nuance, irony, and implied meanings. For example, in many English-speaking cultures, direct criticism is often softened with positive comments or indirect language. Understanding this cultural practice helps you interpret feedback like, "That's an interesting approach, but have you considered?" as gentle disagreement rather than genuine enthusiasm. As your 5-month journey progresses, you'll likely encounter what linguists call the intermediate plateau, a period where you can communicate basic ideas but struggle to express more complex thoughts or understand fast, natural speech. This plateau is frustrating but completely normal. To push beyond this plateau, consciously seek out more challenging material. If you've been watching simplified English content, try regular shows meant for native speakers. If you've been reading graded readers, attempt authentic articles or books. This strategic discomfort pushes your skills to new levels. Also, consider focusing on collocations, words that naturally appear together in English. Learning phrases like make a decision rather than take a decision, or heavy rain rather than strong rain, helps your English sound more natural and fluent. Native speakers process language in chunks rather than individual words, and developing this same ability will significantly enhance your fluency. Another valuable approach is backward planning. Start with your end goal of fluency in 5 months, then work backward to establish monthly, weekly, and daily milestones. This creates a clear roadmap and helps you monitor whether you're on track to reach your goal. For instance, your milestones might look something like this. Month 1, master basic conversation about familiar topics. Build core vocabulary of 1,000 words. Month 2, discuss a wider range of topics. Understand slow, clear native speech. Expand vocabulary to 2,000 words. Month 30, express opinions and feelings with greater nuance. Follow most everyday conversations. Reach 3,000-word vocabulary. Month 40, discuss abstract topics. Understand most media content. Develop specialized vocabulary in areas of interest. Month 50, refine fluency. Focus on idioms and cultural nuances. Address any remaining weak areas. These specific benchmarks make the larger goal less overwhelming and provide regular opportunities to measure your progress. As you near the end of your 5-month journey, resist the temptation to constantly compare yourself to native speakers. Instead, recognize the remarkable achievement of developing functional fluency in a new language in such a short time. Celebrate your ability to express yourself, connect with others, and navigate life in English, even if you haven't achieved the perfection of a native speaker with decades of exposure. Remember that language learning is not a destination, but a lifelong journey. Even after reaching conversational fluency, you'll continue to refine your skills, expand your vocabulary, and deepen your cultural understanding throughout your life. The 5-month intensive phase is just the beginning of this rewarding journey. In conclusion, achieving English fluency in 5 months requires dedication, strategic practice, and consistent effort. But it is absolutely achievable with the right approach. By combining sufficient quantity of practice with high-quality learning methods, you can make remarkable progress in a relatively short time. Focus on effective communication rather than perfection. Embrace a balanced approach that develops all 4 language skills. Create an immersive English environment wherever you are. Practice regularly with other speakers. Track your progress and celebrate small victories along the way. And most importantly, enjoy the journey. Find aspects of English and its cultures that genuinely interest and excite you. 5 months from now, you could be confidently expressing yourself in English, understanding movies without subtitles, reading books for pleasure, or perhaps using English effectively in your studies or career. That future is within your reach if you commit to this path. I hope this episode has given you both the practical strategies and the inspiration you need to pursue fluency in English. If you found this information helpful, please subscribe to the English Listening Practice podcast for more episodes that will support your language learning journey. Don't forget to leave a comment sharing which strategies you plan to implement first, or any questions you have about developing your English fluency. Your engagement helps this podcast reach more language learners around the world. Until next time, remember that becoming fluent in English is not just about learning a language. It's about opening doors to new opportunities, cultures, and connections. I'm Grace, and I believe in your ability to achieve English fluency in the next 5 months. Let's make it happen together! Thank you for listening to English Listening Practice. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe so you never miss our future content. Share this podcast with friends who are also learning English. Together, we can support each other on this journey to fluency. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Which strategy from today's episode will you try first? Your questions and experiences help me create content that truly serves your needs. Until next time, keep practicing, stay motivated, and remember, English fluency is absolutely within your reach.